Oh, yeah. Here we are. Let's do this. I'm going to start. It's been a long time. It has been a long time since I've done a YouTube live. I've got to start with a song, and then we'll get into it. I want to take your questions, and I want to tell you what I've been up to, because a lot of cool things are going on. So, but first, let's do a sing along. If you know it, sing it. Do you know it? Do you know this song? Here it comes. I swear I recognize your face. Sing along, even though I can't hear you. All seems familiar, yeah. Can't seem to place it. And I find skip. That's it, Alan. Lies your name. Lifetimes are catching up with me. All these strangers taking place. I wish I'd seen the place that no one's ever taken me. Hearts and thoughts, they fade away. Hearts and thoughts, they fade away. I swear I recognize your breath. All seems familiar. What's the words? I swear I recognize your breath. Oh yeah, here it is. Memories. Oh no! Or I just wanna scream. There it is. Hello. Oh my God, it's been so long. Never dreamed you'd return, but now here you are. Here I am. Hearts and thoughts that fade away. Hearts and thoughts, they fade away. Hearts and thoughts, they fade away. Hearts and thoughts, they fade. Guys, thank you for being here. Happy Friday, and it's been a long time since I've done a live. So let's get into this. So there's a lot of things going on in the world of breath work, in the world of health and wellness, longevity, and all these things. So I'm so happy to share it with you guys. Let's see here. Hey, how is rock and roll? You know, that's the thing. I've been talking to a lot of other breath workers that I'm working with on some really exciting projects. And do you know, we talk about what kind of music we like. Of course, I was just playing that guitar. And yes, I listen to handpan music a lot. And yes, we listen to a lot of music that's great to breathe to. But hey, man, I can't help it. But I like my rock and roll. I'm a huge fan of, especially 90s alternative. I think those just kind of like my thing. Tool was just a fantastic band. It still is. And I recently, last weekend I saw Sigur Rós. Have you guys seen Sigur Rós? That's like the best show I've ever seen in my life. So overall, and I got to say, actually with Sigur Rós, I use Sigur Rós in a lot of my breath sessions, especially if you come to a live breath session with Language of Breath. So welcome everybody. Before I get too far into it, I do want to say that I have been busy. I don't know how many weeks of lives I missed. I have it on my phone, on my calendar, that, okay, every Friday at 2 Eastern, or I was doing it like 3:30 Eastern. I didn't like doing it that time, but it just seemed to be the only time I could get to it on Fridays. I was doing it around those, but I was doing every week. I like doing a weekly check-in. I appreciate you guys a lot, and it does me a lot of good just to kind of, there's a saying to let your hair down and just let it go and just say what you're going to say instead of having to think about, like, when I make a lot of videos, especially now, I try to make videos that are a lot higher grade than whenever I started the channel. If there's videos, guys, if there's videos that, if there's videos you want me to make, put them over here in the chat or wherever it is that the chat is for you. There's a lot. The thing is, I've got almost 400 videos on YouTube at this point. Like, there's hours of Jesse for better or worse on there. And I'm taking off some of my older ones. There's some things I've learned. There's some things that I have learned that are no longer true. Or like I made a video saying one thing and I'm like, I don't really believe that anymore. Or, maybe I was too harsh on this person or that thing. Or sometimes, just the science came out and things changed. So I have taken down a lot of some of my older YouTube videos. There was a YouTube video I made one time on tinnitus or tetanus, and I mispronounced it the entire time. I called it tinnitus or something like that. And somebody made the meanest comment. Right. They were making fun of me, and hey, I can take it. This audience was actually really, really supportive, and they're like, hey man, be nice to Jesse. He's trying. But I had to remake that one. But basically, yeah, if there's videos you'd like me to do, I'll be happy to throw those in the mix. A lot of the stuff that I've already covered, even 2 or 3 years ago, when it comes to like cold exposure, I did a lot of cold exposure videos in 2020 and a lot in like 2019. And I'm like, well, I don't really need to say that again. But I know I still get a lot of people reaching out, having questions on a lot of those earlier videos. So, or not necessarily on the videos, but the topics that those videos covered. So if you got any videos that you're like, hey, have you made a video about this? Or have you made a video about that? Please feel free to put it in the chat or in the comments below. Feel free to comment. I'm going to be here for the next 30 minutes to an hour doing this YouTube live. And I want to share with you the reason why. So I have not been doing YouTube lives, and it's not because I don't like doing them. It's just that I haven't had time, and I have been burning the candle at both ends. So when it comes down to it, one of the things that I'm just trying to do a lot of stuff all at once, and something has to give. So that was where I had to make a cut somewhere, and the YouTube live, that was it. I'm going to try to do more YouTube lives, but for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to be training my first class of breath workers. So I'm training people to become breath workers and teach language of breath. That is ultimately using all the different techniques that are out there, and learning how to looking past the mind body paradigm that we all have heard about. Okay, mind and body, but ultimately when it comes down to it, we're a lot of times, okay, so where's your mind? And we point up here. Okay, where's your body? Okay, it's down here, but this is also your body, right? And then your mind actually goes down here too. And so really it's all one thing. And we just, through our language, we've separated these things. And I mean, usually it puts us in this weird position where we believe, we're this operator to this like flesh robot or whatever it is. And it can really put us in a bad place. So what I've been working on is the Language of Breath online course. And I've been I would say I put at least 100 hours into this course. The course itself is about 6 hours worth of material, around there, maybe between 6 and 7 hours of in-depth instruction on every aspect of breath work that you can imagine, and ultimately tying it all together. And so tying all of breath work together, not like this particular method or this particular style or this or that, but looking at all of the different ways breathing, all the different ways we use breathing to, and this is what we talk about in the Language of Breath, all the different ways we use breathing to become a whole person. Because when you're working with your physiology as opposed to against it, see, that's how so many people are working against their psychology. They're working against their own physiology And so what this course is all about, and this is what I'm all about as I go forward teaching what I call the language of breath, it's all about learning to work with what's already here. And so oftentimes we look at breath work as control, 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 and it's not this awesome relationship that it can be. So that's coming out. If you're in the Patreon club, you're going to get early access to the course with a huge discount. So if you're in the Patreon club, I think it's going to be dropping for you guys on Sunday. So Sunday, be looking in the Patreon club because you're about to get first access to it at least 2 weeks before anybody else. And you'll be getting the biggest discount that I'm going to offer. So it is some of my best work, and I'm incredibly proud of it. So yeah, check that out. It's coming out soon. If you're on my email list, you're going to get second access to it before we roll it out to just anybody and everybody. So if you're not on my email list, or if you're not in the Patreon club, definitely go to my website. You can find the Patreon club there, or you can go to the landing page on this YouTube channel or my Instagram. But the landing page on this YouTube channel, the nice thing is all my links are there, and you can find out how to join the Patreon club or go to my website to sign up for the newsletter. Also, if you've purchased any of my books, so A Practical Guide to Breathwork or A Practical Guide to Cold Training, there's a code in the back that will give you $25 off the course. So the price of the book itself, you're going to get back if you want to use that. But I will tell you this, the Patreon club gets a much bigger discount. And if you're on my email list, you get a bigger discount than that too. So, and that's a limited time. There are limited times on that, but those are coming out. So I've been so busy on that. I just haven't been able to get onto YouTube to do these lives. And so it's been crazy how, putting all this stuff together, it's some of the best work. This is an interesting thing about when you're really passionate about something, and it is work. Like at the end of the day, every day for the past 3 months, putting this course together. And of course, I haven't just only been doing that one thing. I also have to do other things to survive, right? So I'm also doing other stuff. Like for instance, guys, I did a retreat that was just for first responders. So police, firefighters, EMTs, 911. And I got to say, this group of people, they were amazing. But I got to also say, we've got a lot of trauma that we don't really address in the public sphere. We don't really address this trauma. We put people in these terrible situations where they've got to save people's lives. They've got to make these split-second decisions, and they do it all the time. And when these people arrived at this retreat, we went out to it was a Zen Buddhist retreat center. And like you talk about Zen as possible. I mean, it was out in the middle of nowhere. It was in Iowa, and it was called the Hokyoji Zen Retreat Center. Hey, Ryan, nice to have you next week. Actually, in just a couple days, I'm going to see you because you are about to become a language of breath worker. So I'm so happy to have you here. I'm just talking about the retreat that I was doing, and this is all part of the work of breathwork. That right now, breathwork is expanding. It's like the Wild West. Right now, there's a lot of great voices out there. There's a lot of junk out there. That's the big problem. Is it's difficult to know really who to trust. And so that's what I'm trying to do as I'm training breath workers, is trying to have, okay, this is the standard. We need to have some standards in breath work, because we need to make sure that a person can go to breath work. The worst thing in the world, and it's happened with supplements, it's happened with fitness, or a lot of things, that a person has a lot of, they have a lot of need. Hey, I need to take, health and wellness seriously. So I'm going to go to a source, and they happen to find a source that is just kind of like a junk source, or it's clickbait or something like that. And then they get burned, and they're like, this stuff doesn't work. It's just garbage, right? And so what we're trying to do with the Language of Breath Collective, that is another thing I'm going to be talking about. Actually, you guys will probably meet Rye in an episode of this, because we're going to be really getting this. Our goal is to get the world, so that if you know someone who's like, hey, you need breath work, well, of course you can call us. But the idea is that when we raise the standards, everybody raises the standards. And so that's how it's happened. And fortunately, it's a good thing because, for instance, in the 80s and 90s, there were a lot of like really garbage fit. I mean, there's still garbage fitness things, right? But like a person wanting to go get in shape and lose weight and things like that. Yes, there's still the, hey, take this pill and it does it all for you. They still exist. But there were so many more scams in the 80s and 90s whenever these things were just starting to come out, right? And so what we're trying to do is say, okay, listen, we're going to have a standard, and it's not just one style. It's not just the brand names. We're going to teach superventilation, CO2 tolerance. We're going to teach autonomic nervous system control. We're going to have integrative style breath work so we can work on our emotions, and we're going to do it in a way that's scientifically based. So I'm going to be coming out, and this is, man, there's so many things. There's so many things I haven't, like, it's been so long since I've talked to you guys. There's so many things I have to announce. So I am working on a book, another book. So my next book is going to be about the language of breath system. And it's gonna be a while. So I have not actually started on the book. I actually am in the processing the book deal done and all this other stuff it's boring stuff that you really don't need to hear about. But the whole thing is doing the research to really explain the foundations of everything. Of course, the book that I already came out with, A Practical Guide to Breathwork, does a good job of doing that. But this is going to take it even deeper, especially into emotions. Why is it that breathwork seems to do so much for our emotional state? Now, I have a theoretical framework that I've been working with. I've been working with some neuroscientists and some psychologists. And my hope is that we can actually do a specific study and include that study for the purposes in this book. I don't know. I know that everything right now is kind of up in the air because it's just difficult to get things going with some of this stuff right now. Like, for instance, I have to get my book done a full year before it is released because there's a paper shortage. I had no idea there was a paper shortage. So hey, thanks so much, Rye. I'll see you on the replay. But yeah, there's a paper shortage in this world now. So I guess we're short on everything. So anyway, but that's coming out, and it should be out in, I guess, 2023. That's my goal, is to have it out in 2023. I'm going to finish writing it this year, and then it'll be out next year. I'm still working on the possibility of releasing the paper copy of A Practical Guide to Cold Training this year. But I've got so much on my plate, I just don't know. So anyway, I've been really working hard on this online course. And some of you guys know that I've done the online breath mastery stuff, like the 6-week breath mastery courses. And what I'll probably bring that back, but I'll do language of breath. Language of breath is just essentially my full philosophy of all of breath work. And I'll probably do that as a live course as well. But the course that I've been working on is completely on demand. It's a 6-week course that takes you step by step, and you can go at your own. It's at your own pace to some degree. But I do the thing, and I know some people don't like it at first, but it's statistically proven to make people actually pay attention and to finish the course, because I really want people to finish it to get the most out of it. Don't just buy it, okay? Buy it and then actually finish it and become like better off for it. So I do the thing where it goes 1 week at a time. So when you buy it, then you get the first week, and then 7 days later, the second week opens up, and so on and so forth. So that's, I'm sorry. I know I used to not like that. And then I realized that if I had access to the entire course all at once, then I robo watched everything, kind of like a Netflix show. And then I ended up not really learning as much, rather than, okay, I'm going to really focus on these different principles each week. And that's ultimately what the course is all about. Okay, having said that, I've got some events coming up. If you haven't already signed up for the Convergence, that is coming up next month. The Convergence is probably, I would say the Convergence is, now you know me, and I don't really get too woo-woo. So I have nothing against it. It's just I generally don't do a lot of, I wouldn't say the Convergence is that woo-woo. It's just, it's a little bit more than I usually do. But it's a fantastic event. And I've got to say, this year is going to be even better than last year. And I'll tell you why. And it's not, I shouldn't even say it's woo-woo, but it's ceremonial. Okay. So let's talk about that for just a second. So when it comes to being ceremonial, we as human beings need ceremony, it seems, right? To make to make things important, to say, okay, this is something that we're really going to take it seriously. It seems as though humans need ceremony to make a transition or a change. So we make it into a ceremonial thing. And so it's not really, I guess, woo woo. It's more, but it is to some degree a little bit more of a it's ceremony. So we get there, and on the very first night you're there, we have a funeral. And it's not, it's like, wow, how about just a handshake and a smile? But no, we have a funeral, and the funeral is just for the purposes of saying, okay, in the theory, the I guess the philosophy behind the convergence is that in order to birth the best you, so there's a part of you inside of you that needs to probably die, right? So we all have bad habits, bad mindsets, things that are not serving us, whether it is an addiction or a sense of guilt for something that you've carried along way too long, or whatever it is. The idea is we're going to let that die. We're going to have a funeral for that part of you the day you arrive. So Friday night, when you get there, funeral time. And then the rest of the weekend is about growing the new you, allowing the new you to be born. And we even have a birthing process at the end, which is just insanely awesome. And it's out in Mandala Springs. So you get the most pristine ecological system out there in the mountains. And this year I'm going to do an introduction to vivation. So some of you guys have seen my vivation video. And this is a form of integrative breath work that I've really been diving into. And I'll be, sharing more about it as we go. But vivation is especially effective in integrating emotions. And this is it's very difficult to make any serious change in our lives for the positive without addressing our emotions. And sometimes we don't even know what the emotion is. And the cool thing about vivation is that you don't have to, whether it's some kind of trauma that maybe you know about, maybe you forgot about, or it's some kind of an emotional block. And what's crazy is I'm researching the science behind this, and there's a lot of science to back up what the founder of vivation had in mind. And it's like, whoa, this is really cool. They were really onto something before the science was there. So often in breath work, we find this, but basically, ultimately, in order to move forward in your life, in order to birth that better you, there's emotional blocks and things that we have to get through. So we're going to use vivation. It's a 2-hour session. If you like deep breath work, vivation. So just one of the things we're going to do is an introduction to vivation. It's not a complete training to vivation. It generally takes 3 days to learn vivation in a really, really real sense, but you will get a vivation experience. And it's generally about an hour of instruction and about an hour of breath. So, and it's straight up into the void. I mean, we're talking I shouldn't say into the void. I should say into you is where we're going to be breathing. So we're going to be doing that. That's one of the things. We're also going to have primal movement instructions with Rob Linfesti. You'll probably eat a bunch of things off of the forest floor and all over the place, because it is amazing how much Rob knows about, all these wild foods. In fact, the food is catered and it's completely part of the ticket. But in addition to that, they're also utilizing wild food from the land. So you talk about the most nutritious, the delicious, and like nutrients that you can't find in farmed foods, right? So nutrients that literally you cannot farm these plants, and the combinations that are within these plants you can only get through natural sources. So you get to eat those things. In addition to that, Mandala Springs sits on, I don't know how many natural springs they have, but it is the best water that you'll ever drink. And I bring home as much as I can every year after I go out to Rob's place. And it's always like, oh my God. And like the last drop is like, oh, goodbye. And then I have to I drink filtered water here, but here in Indiana, but man, I always bring back as much water as I can. So as far as your overall health, it's couldn't be healthier. In addition to that, I'll be leading you through some Sudarshan Kriya. We'll be doing heat purification with the tribal elder, which is going to be fantastic. And then it was amazing last year. And this guy is just unbelievably just the biggest hearted guy you'll ever meet in your life. In addition to that, we'll be doing cacao ceremony and a lot of other challenges that are physical challenges, but it's the best kind. So a lot of fun, a lot of sweat, a lot of breakthroughs, and ultimately an unforgettable weekend. So we had everybody that came last year. They were just like just incredibly changed and moved. And we're looking forward to it this year. So yeah, Dana, you ought to come out to Rob's place. It's a fantastic weekend, and it's next month. It's in July. I believe it's July 15th. Let me just double check on my calendar what I got on that. Let's see. It is July, 15th through the 17th. And so you'll arrive Friday evening. Camping is included, but you do need to bring your tent. Some people just go in town because there's a hotel pretty close by and just stay at a hotel. If you don't want to camp, you don't have to. But camping, you can camp there. The wood's included, and there's one bathroom and shower, but it's also there's outhouses. Like you talk about an ecological reserve, you're on it, and so it's pretty fantastic. And that is next month, so it's coming right around the corner. The one thing that we do ask is if you think you're going to go, please sign up because these events are. It's one of those things where we need to make sure we have X number of people in order to actually make the event happen. So we want to know approximately how many to expect as early on as possible. So that is the Convergence, and that's in it's in Barnardsville, North Carolina. So it's just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and that's July 15th to the 17th. And you can go on my website right now, jessecoomer.com, for under events. And you can find that event, and you can sign up, and or you can always, if you have questions, you can always reach out to me via jessecoomer.com and just click on contact me, and it goes straight to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And then if I can't answer them, Rob can. He is on site. He lives on Mandala Springs. It is the most beautiful place, and I always love going out there. So that is happening next month. And literally today, it will be. We haven't even actually launched the website. The website will be launched at some time today. Inspire Fest. So my friend and fellow breath worker Ryan Bean he and I are going to be putting on Inspire Fest, and this is going to be in October, and that will be in I think it's just outside of Austin, Texas. And this is going to be really cool. And so we're going to be doing a lot of language of breath work. So some very deep sessions, integrative sessions, just super, super deep breathing, absolutely just amazing feelings. And it's all about cultivating yourself and ultimately becoming the most authentic you that you can be. So we're going to be doing some art. We're going to be doing some breath. We're going to be doing paddleboard yoga. So, paddleboard yoga is just this awesome thing. You're going to be out on this beautiful lake that's out in Austin, Texas. And we've got these amazing cabins. It's all included. The food's included. Everything's inclusive whenever you get your ticket. I don't have the link just yet, but if you're watching this on the replay, check out jessecoomer.com and I'll have that soon. So let's see here. So Ben Johnson. Hey, Ben, how's it going? He says, hey, I enjoyed your recent spring Bloomington breathwork video. Oh, spring blooming. Oh man, thank you. Yeah, spring blooming. The thing is, good things are coming, right? And this is one of those things that we often, if you look at the news, if you look at social media, it's so easy to get bogged down with, oh my God, there's all these bad things, and whenever we feel these fears and things like that, we actually do get some high out of it. It's this weird high that we get from feeling afraid. And that's part of our unconscious self. And this is kind of language of breath speak, but part of our unconscious self, whenever we're feeling afraid, actually will give you some endorphins. It actually gives you some dopamine, and it gives you some of the chemicals that we might consider happy chemicals, but in reality, they're not necessarily happy chemicals, right? They are stress-induced chemicals. And some of those chemicals make us feel good in the moment. We don't even realize how addictive they are, but it's ultimately part of your unconscious self trying to gear you up for action so that you can make it through some bad time. And we get addicted to it. And of course, we can't help it. Oh man, I just got to look at what's on the news. I got to look at what's on social media. And before you know it, you're hooked on bad times and ugly, just really ugly posts. And you're saying, oh yeah, well, I need to say something, incredibly rude to someone who I love and have known forever. This is the weirdest thing about social media I've ever found. Like, and I've been guilty of it myself, is like you have a real friend who is a real life friend, someone that in real life you like to be around. And then what happens is you decide, okay, they make some kind of a point and then you disagree with it. So you have to publicly disagree with them and act like they're stupid or something like that. It's the weirdest thing. It should just be so incredibly foreign. Like, social media can be used for good purposes, and ultimately that's the whole sales pitch, is that it's something that we can keep in contact with each other. We can find out what everybody's doing, in a good way. It's not necessarily snooping, but sometimes it turns into snooping. Sometimes it does. Anyway, so hey guys, I should be here for another 20 minutes or so. If you have any questions, and I'll answer your question here in just a minute, my friend, Andre. If you have any questions, guys, please hit the like button. Help me out with the algorithm. I haven't done YouTube lives in a while, so I don't know if I don't know if I should have said that word, the A word. I don't know. But sometimes I think YouTube is like, okay, does he do these YouTube lives anymore? Or, so we need to remind YouTube, hey, he also does YouTube lives still. Andre says, question, how to continue doing breath work in a very busy / stressful period, for example, finals. So Andre, that's a great question. And this is one of those things where, it depends on the environment, because if you're in finals, right, you can't just break out into some kind of a super ventilative or sniff poop. I mean, people might kick you out. You might not be able to stay in the finals, testing room. I also teach people who are doing, first responders, military, people who are under enormous amounts of life or death stress. How do you do it? Now, this is the focus. One of the focuses of the online course that I'm coming out with. If you're part of the Patreon club, you get access Sunday. But just as a precursor to that, ultimately, there's two things to consider. One is that you need to know some things, some techniques, and you need to know how to breathe in the moment. So there are times whenever, okay, I know, oh wow, I am, like, for instance, I think we've all taken a final, or we've taken a test or something, and your mind just goes blank, right? So it's like, somehow I promise I studied all night, and I sat down to that test and nothing. I just couldn't remember anything. And it's ultimately because once we get a certain degree of anxiety, we literally just don't have the capacity. We're stuck in that go or no go, and it's not a great time for our intellect to shine. So you do need to know some techniques that work for you. And so down regulation techniques, and one of the most commonly used, but it's not because it's a bad one, it's just common because it works, is box breathing. And ultimately, box breathing is a good one, and you can do that pretty much in any environment. If you're taking a test or something like that, nobody's going to get in your face, because you're breathing in, you're holding for 4, you're exhaling for 4. You're not huffing and puffing. You're not causing a scene. Box breathing is a pretty good one. There's a lot of techniques, a lot of techniques. And so if you check out my book for autonomic nervous system, the thing is, sometimes one technique is going to work for one person really well, and then the next person, it just doesn't work the same way. Or it can also be a matter of how you are doing the technique. So when we talk about form in weight training, right? And when we talk about technique in weight training, we're talking about, okay, so it's not just, did you lift the bar, wherever you lifted it. It's how did you, what joints were moving, where were they, what muscles groups were using. It's very similar in breath work. So the technique is, okay, we understand we inhale for this much, we hold a breath for this much, we exhale for this much. Cool. That is the technique. That is the basics, but you have to have the right form. If you don't have the right form, then the technique isn't really going to work very well. And so what happens is, and this is what I cover in the course, but what happens is that for some people, they will naturally have great, just kind of like intuition on how one technique works, and they'll just naturally have perfect form for that, and it'll work really well for them. And then maybe they might not have that great of form on the other one, and it's just like, I don't know why this doesn't work. It works for everybody else, but it doesn't work for me. So if you've got my book, check out some of the autonomic nervous system downregulators. You're going to want to downregulate the autonomic nervous system, and that can be done with box breathing, with innate breathing, with ratio breathing, balanced breathing. Ultimately, your goal is to calm yourself down. And the little, I always call it the decoder ring of all breath work is, if you're breathing like you're relaxed, you're going to be more relaxed. If you breathe like you're freaking out, you're going to freak out a little bit more. Or a lot more. So just try to keep that in mind. On top of that, though, so that's just one thing. That's breathing in the moment. But we can't always just wait for that moment. We have to perform in that moment. So if you're doing, I don't know what you're testing on for finals, but I remember taking the the GRE? Yeah, I think it was the GRE whenever I was in grad school. And so it's like the SAT, but for grad school, for graduate school. And they test you with your language skills, and they test you with your math skills. Well, math is not my bag, guys. I tested okay in it, but I'm more of a language person than I am a math person. Okay, I'm an English professor. Okay, so go figure, right? Well, if you're counting times off in your head, you're probably going to be messing up your concentration. So it's okay to do that before you sit down, or maybe during breaks or things like that. But ultimately, a regular practice, a practice that focuses on actually teaching your unconscious self how to stay relaxed, and teaching your unconscious self, ultimately kind of reprogramming some aspects of your unconscious self so that it doesn't have those heightened states so often. That's going to be to your benefit. And ultimately, that's the best thing in the long run. But both of those things are important. Having a regular practice that's going to help you maintain a calm state just in general. And then on top of that, having at least one or two tools that you can use for autonomic downshifting, that's going to be to your best advantage. In addition to that, I like nootropics. So I take, for instance, if I were going to go take some finals, I would probably take alpha GPC. So supplementation is something I'm a fan of supplementation, as long as the supplement is actually the right supplement. And as long as you're not just trying to make up for, I just eat fried everything, right? So you should get all of your vitamins and minerals through your food. But the problem is, our foods have been depleted. So it's important to supplement as needed. And so if I were going to go take a final or the GRE or some kind of a major test, or anytime I'm in a stressful period and I need to maintain my focus, I like taking alpha GPC, and I generally take about 300 milligrams of that. And then I would also take L-theanine. L-theanine, I would typically take between 200 to 400 milligrams of L-theanine. And then on top of that, if you really want to really supercharge your focus and your calm, DMAE is one of my favorites. And that's one that, typically, I forget exactly how much I take. It's a weird dose. It's like 451 milligrams or something like that. I forget exactly what I take of that. I take one of those just about every single day. I don't take alpha GPC every single day. I don't take L-theanine every single day, But DMAE is so cheap and it's so effective, and it's something that over the long run has been shown to have neuroprotective benefits. So, if, for instance, if you don't want to lose the cognitive abilities that you have, there are things you can do to protect those cognitive abilities. Of course, learning a new language, being a lifelong learner, those are the ones. But one of the things you can do is take DMAE, and it's been shown to clear out some of that gunk that accumulates, that will over time cause you to be more forgetful, have less focus, and it's generally those age related things. So I take those. If you're a fan of this channel, you probably know that I've been taking NMN for quite some time. Well, I don't know. When I say quite some time, I shouldn't say it like it's been years. I've probably been taking NMN for about a year now, and there are supposed to be neurocognitive benefits, at least some of them, to NMN, even some like mood enhancement. So I don't know if I've really felt those, but I have been taking it now for quite some time, and maybe not. I'm definitely convinced by the science. Last supplement that I'm gonna talk about for the neural benefit, the neurocognitive effects, is creatine. So I take creatine. I've been taking it now for like 20 years, I think. No, probably not 20 years. Maybe 15-ish years, maybe 11 to 15. Creatine monohydrate is cheap and it's widely available. And creatine also, in addition to being what's behind these gains, right? Yes, I'm all about having being physically fit, but also creatine has been shown to be a very powerful nootropic, and I believe it. I've seen it in my own life, especially on over those years. It's not like I've never missed a day or a week or a month. I've been off of creatine off and on, over those years. But I always notice when I get back on it on a regular basis that I'm sharper. And there's a lot of research actually out there that it helps you make better decisions. Now, I'm not sure how they quantified that, but there was a study that came out in the past, I think it was just like 2 years ago. And it helped. It was basically saying that it helped you make essentially people who were taking it regularly made better overall decisions than those who didn't. I forget exactly the criteria, but I was like, hey, I need to make better decisions, right? I'm okay with making better decisions. Let's make better decisions. So, I take creatine every day. On the days that I work out, I'll put creatine in like a protein shake or something like that. On the days that I don't work out, I'll take a pill version of creatine. It does not matter the brand. Yes, there are some just absolute garbage brands out there, but there are so many brands. You go to, if just find a brand that you trust for something else, and then they probably make creatine too, and you can take that. So in addition, when it comes to breath work, there's a lot we can do to improve our focus and to help us to not become so stressful, especially also in busy periods. But in addition to that, there are things we can do to help us become a little sharper. What I have noticed, especially in the past few months, working on the online course, working with all these projects that I've been working on, is that when you have brain fog versus when you have a clear head, right? You use less energy when you have a clear head. When you have brain fog, a lot of times you have to do the same work twice because you keep messing it up. And in addition to that, the work that you do, you have to like really strain to focus more. And those are the benefits of breath work, nootropics, of course, cold showers, heat therapy. Both cold and heat can help you with stress mitigation and with what we might consider to be the cognitive benefits that you can get cognitive benefits from both heat and cold therapy. And I do both. So I actually like steam room. My steam room has been closed for some time. Hopefully they'll be opening it up soon so I can get back into it. But of course, this channel, you guys know that I do a lot of cold training. So both of those things are fantastic for keeping you alert. And then also, if you do them regularly, there's a lot of research that shows that you just experience stress less. So like you're just more adapted to stress. And I can say out of my own personal experience that I can say that that is absolutely true. That while I do still experience stress, I'm not saying that, oh, I just never have any stress anymore. If anybody says that to you, they're lying. But what I've been really impressed with is that um, just simply, and even if it's just a little cold shower every day, like I've been so busy, I haven't been able to take ice baths like I regularly did. I was taking ice baths every day for the longest time. And that was just my life. I took an ice bath every single day. And it's very difficult for me to do that now. I'm traveling all the time. I'm working on all these projects. I've got a family that deserves my time, and I love my family, and I want to be around them. So I one of the things that I've reduced is maybe my ice bathing time, but I still have to take a shower every day. So I just never use warm water, and I still have to do. I still go to the gym regularly, and so if I can get into the heat, I do. We got a guy over here that says that's for sure. I'm not sure. That's a long name you got, my friend, Mr. O'Shea. He says that's for sure. Nothing clears me up. Some Bikram. Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a reason, and actually what's interesting about geniuses is that oftentimes they're genius in one area and then maybe they go a little off the deep end in other areas, right? So if you know the story of Bikram, but like he was absolutely right in why hot yoga, we call it hot yoga or Bikram yoga, is so good for us, and it makes you feel so good. I don't do yoga anymore, not because I have anything against it. It's just that in my town, okay, so I live in a small town in Indiana. I like that. I actually really like the fact that I live in a small town in Indiana. We used to have a fantastic yoga instructor, and she would do the hot yoga. She would do all the different kinds, and I would just go and do yoga with her. And after that, I just haven't. After she left, I just really haven't found anybody that I want to go to on that regular of a basis, and it's just not been in my schedule, and it just hasn't happened. But I absolutely hot yoga. It was just fantastic. The endorphins that you feel afterwards are just fantastic, and really it does clear your mind, like you say, my friend. So yeah, thank you for that comment. So yeah, when it comes down to it, when you have to focus, you need to understand that when we are under intense stress, that feeling of anxiety that we get, the actual feeling of anxiety is going to get you out of that focus state. It's very difficult to focus when I'm not going to go into the biochemistry or what's happening in the brain, but it is difficult because when we're in that stress state, our unconscious self it believes that we are in a state where we might have to physically fend for our lives. And that's not normally the state where it's like, well, hey, let's get intellectual now. Let's remember what the logarithm is, or what the Pythagorean theorem is, or let's recite a poem. Whenever you're fearing for your life, and that's ultimately what is biochemically happening within you when you have like test anxiety or a lot of these severe anxieties that come along with life. You're less likely to be able to think critically or creatively, and you make more bad decisions. I think we've all seen the dog that gets scared suddenly and then just turns around, runs straight into the wall. Right? My dog does that sometimes. It's hilarious. Yeah. I love my dog, but it is hilarious. Well, that's an example of how it is difficult to have critical thinking, creative thinking, and at the same time as having high state of autonomic nervous system arousal. So again, we can do a lot of things to combat that. There's things for the here and now. There's things that we can do to try to become more resilient to stress just all the time. There are things you can do, like for instance, those supplements that you can start taking and implementing. Those would be what I would consider somewhat preventative, as far as like, okay, I know I'm going to need to be on it today. I've got a presentation to make, or I've got a test to take, or something that's going to be high stress and I need to be able to focus, great. I'm going to take some of these supplements, like I was saying, creatine, L-theanine, alpha GPC, or DMAE. Those are my favorites. There are other ones out there. Some people like CBD. I just personally, I don't notice much help with CBD. And it's a shame too, because my sister, she started a company where she makes CBD oils, and it's like super, super organic and just like really, it's all earth-based products. Spoiler alert. Okay. This is inside baseball for those of you who made it, who are here right now, or if you made it through this recording and you've made it to the 50-minute mark. I have her working on a beard balm, a breathworker beard balm that I was like, dude, make a beard balm, and we're working on a formula to release. So maybe that'll be available on my website someday. I don't know. Maybe it is. Any bearded people in the audience? Maybe, maybe not. It's okay if you're not. But anyway, guys, I've been hanging out here for about an hour. I do want to just kind of wrap this up and just let you guys know that I am coming out with the Language of Breath online course. That is why I haven't been here so much. Okay. It's not that I didn't want to do online or the YouTube lives, but I just haven't been here so much because I've been working so hard on this course. I'm really proud of it. It's going to be dropping over the next 30 days. If you're in the Patreon club, you get first access plus the biggest possible discount. If you're on my email list, you get second access plus a really sizable discount. And then after that, I'm going to be releasing it just absolutely to the world. And if you have purchased a copy of either one of my books, you'll be able to use that coupon code in the back. So it's a nice thing. It kind of basically me buying back the book or making it so that the book was free, because it's $25 off, which is the price of the book. And if you haven't purchased my books, go to jessecoomer.com, check out the books area. My book, A Practical Guide to Breathwork, is available on Amazon, Audible, iTunes, all of those different things. So if you're looking to get started to really take breathwork seriously, so my beard's okay. He says my beard's always there. It's just shorter than my face right now. Well, yeah, it's just buried in my face skin. Well, hey, that's it, right. It's always there, Anyway, guys, thanks so much for being here. It's just fantastic. I am going to be published in Mudwater, the Mudwater blog. So on June 15th, they're doing a whole thing with the Mudwater website. So if you're a fan of Mudwater, they're doing a whole thing about cold training, and they interviewed me, and you can check out all of my tips on the Mudwater blog. So thanks so much, guys. You guys really are awesome. And thanks so much for coming out. Please like, subscribe, etc. And as always, don't forget to go out there and be kind to one another. All right, guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you next time.